Hi, so I'm going to walk you through how to create some like branding in your lobby reception areas, mostly using your logos and things like that. I have a couple examples of past years that I'm going to show you first and kind of talk you through what are the different aspects these students used. In the email I sent you, there's going to be a link directly to it, but it's in Anthony's Project 2 files, and I created this folder with examples. So let me walk you through kind of what folks have used. All right, this example is a tough one to start off with because this student got really adept at using Enscape and had it on their laptop, had paid for it. So the lighting effects that you see in this are because she was able to really dress it up in Enscape. But what I want to show you is what she did pretty simply back here is for her logo, it's really just a square decal. So this wall itself, she created this wall and then put what would be like flooring material in this case on it. She's obviously going with a lot of these square linear kind of looks with her reception desk. And so that works fine. And I think they were coming off the elevator maybe here for it. So depending on sort of sights of vision of where you'd see that, that worked out pretty well. Another example, same kind of example here. This is just a square decal of the logo. One thing to point out, we know y'all love brick walls. I love warehouses and old, lofts and stuff too. However, this is a modern office building, and Lynn and I are not big fans of brick walls. So we kind of caught this late with this student because, again, this would be fake in this kind of building. So just as an aside. All right, so moving along, this student did a lot of the work behind the scenes in Photoshop. So this is a decal that was basically this big square, because to get the black of Photoshop to say match with the black paint on a wall is impossible. So instead, this whole thing is one big decal where she created this big square, painted it all in black, then brought in this like logo that was probably had a transparent background, so the black comes through. This screen over here, the idea was that this was probably this is like a video game company. This is a big interactive screen where probably, they're rotating, moving images. But again, in Photoshop, she, researched the company, found a cool image of their actual, products, and this would be running on a screen behind the wall. Another interesting thing she did too was there's a lot of cool things you can add illumination to in Revit, but they don't always work great, just like lighting. So this actually, she just painted all in Photoshop to get that lighting effect. So that worked too. All right, in this case, this student, again, it's a big square decal. They gave the background here, this texture, in Photoshop, then put the words over it, then brought this square in. I would think though, something that might have been more successful is if they scaled this instead to fill in this whole wall and kind of give the impact of maybe this was a wood wall with the words kind of coming out in it. And you could have also maybe added a shadow to those letters in Photoshop to then give it some visual depth to it. This student, like, kudos, man, she put so much work into this. And so I'll kind of explain how she did this. So initially this was a blank wall, but with actual 3D shelves on it. Then this whole image here with the Z was one big square that she created in Photoshop that she decaled on the wall in Revit. Then once this image was rendered, she then put the helmets on in Photoshop on top of the final rendering, because there was no way to kind of combine it all in one image and still get some 3D depth. So it worked out really cool because this company, was selling motorcycles, and their logo she wasn't too psyched about, and she was kind of trying to play around with having this wall have a bit more impact to it. This one here, their branding was really tied to this orange color, as you can see. So again, instead of trying to match and hope like your logo was only this big and the orange matched, the rectangle would have been this big and then pasted on the desk here. This was the class too that they had enough time to make a lot of their reception desks from scratch. So some of them were already working on that, in anticipation of this project. This final one, this student, again, because we had time to model things, she learned how to model things in families really well. So this whole wall is actually one family. And this here is void shapes. So she basically carved out of the wall to get that depth and perspective. And then the shape in the letters here are basically like if you were to pull something up in SketchUp and make it 3D, she was able to make the shapes in this letter all have depth in Revit. So this is where you can kind of, again, you can see the depth of this really nicely. All right, so that's that's the example of folks from last year. Don't let it scare you, but the idea is to give you some creative ideas. All right, so hold on, I gotta delete what I did earlier. My demo earlier did not work. It's been that kind of day. All right, so we're gonna go over to Photoshop first, and let me show you. This is kind of sad and ugly, but I did this within like 5 minutes, and I know y'all have better Photoshop skills than I did. So I'll kind of turn off some layers. I'm anticipating my desk is, you know, wider than it is taller. I put in some of this silver texture background just to, you know, try to make it visually interesting. Played with this logo, didn't like that as much, maybe this one. Another thing I might do is, you know, add some shadow and depth to this and play around with it a little bit more. So I saved this. I saved it as a JPEG. It can also bring in a PNG file. It can bring a Photoshop file in, but it isn't always super successful. All right, so let me walk you through how it's going to happen here in Revit. In my case, I'm going to put it on the desk here. I'm also going to show you how to put it on a wall here if you wanted it like a big piece of wallpaper. In my model, I'm coming off my elevator here, and this would be like the first thing a visitor would see. Obviously, I haven't done much in my lobby yet. It's kind of sad and gray. I painted in the wood. That's about all I did so far in here. So I'm going to show you what you do is you go up to Decal, and you're going to say Decal Types. Oh, now we got to save again. Blue ball. All right, let's see if we have to pause again. Okay, wait. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I had a couple made already, but we're going to make a new one. So you go down to this little square with the little orangey flower. I'm going to just say test decal. Say okay to that. Now I need to link it to my source image. So this is where I click on these three little dots up here. We'll bring in this guy here. So notice it can read the PNG files and the JPEGs. I'm going to say open. You can play around with some illumination. Doesn't usually work great. You can make the decal glossy or matte. So some of you, if you're bringing in wallpapers, you don't want things shining off your wall. You might want matte. I'm going to keep it gloss for now. Say okay. Now nothing quite happened yet. It's kind of like a component where, so I have to go back to insert and decal. And now I say place a decal. So there it is up there. Now it won't, notice it won't just place it anywhere. I have to like be on a surface. I could put it on the floor. That's going to look pretty bad. So we'll Control Z. But right now I can stick it on the desk here. I'm going to stick one over here on the wall just to play with that in a minute. So this one here, if I want to click on it, you know, it's not in a great position. It's not a great size. If I want to move it around, I can use my up and down arrows. But if I want to make it bigger, this is going to keep it proportional. So in my case, I'm going to say, let's make the height 3 feet. It's going to make the width about 6 feet. Apply. That's getting a little better. You know, it's not great, but so I might go back in and, you know, figure out the math of all of this if I want to make it go the whole way. If I don't want it proportional, I can unlock the proportions and then I can drag these things. But the problem is, in this case with the desk, I get this error message because this decal isn't actually stuck to that desk because that desk is a family. I could go into the family and stick it on the desk, but for now it works okay like that. But over here, since it's actually stuck to the wall, I can unclick it, and if you watch what I'm doing, I can kind of stretch it, and I can stretch it all the way over here if I want, and then it's like making a whole wallpaper across that wall. So this is actually how you add wallpaper and wall murals, and it's basically just this decal. So this is the kind of thing that Anthony and I want to be seeing, is we want you to think about, again, where you're walking into your space. If I go into my model, that view was taken right here, because if I'm coming off the elevator, I'm going to be looking at the desk, and there's that decal right there. See how it's actually kind of more floating in space. In the wall case, it is stuck to that wall. It's kind of a member of that wall now. Another thing to think about is in this room, I have my TVs, so I can show you really quick that. View and 3D view, and there. All right, so in this case, in this room, I'd probably stick a decal on that television. And it's kind of cute if you just literally roll over the decal button. You see the little movie that comes up now. There it goes. This is a perfect example of putting things on screens. So like your TV screen, if you have a digital display board, those kind of aspects to your business. All right, so again, if you have questions on this kind of stuff, please don't hesitate to ask me. I know you're all going to have slightly different experiences of trying to get this to work. But again, we want you to be thinking about the colors, the logos, where is the most impact it's going to have in terms of as someone walks in that building too. All right, thanks and good luck.